Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to FTB Interactions. So since the last episode, I have been super busy. This has been probably the most prep of any episode, or setting up, because, of course, we're starting to push into that HV era, and really starting to automate heavily like we did last episode, and continuing with that automation. So what I've been working on here is totally overhauling. There's still a couple things downstairs. If we pop down and we take a look, of course this stuff isn't plugged up anymore, but over in here, our crafting manager here does still have a few things, because I haven't set up the alloy smelters for these things just yet, because I haven't gotten all that done yet. But I'm actually at the point now where I can pretty much order machines, even to the point actually where we have our very first HV machine completely automated. That is the Advanced Assembling Machine 2s. I can straight up just order these. The only thing right now is the robot arm. I do have to manually craft that. Not a big deal, due to the fact that I can order all the component parts at this point. But like I said, this episode I want to show you guys how I'm automating things like the alloy smelters, the assemblers, also some fluid stuff. I want to show you that, but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time setting up on camera, because we'd end up spending the whole episode. This took a while, an absolute while. But you can actually see as we go down through here what I kind of prioritize setting up. Initially I was setting up assembling machines. Not all of these got set up at the same time. I set up some of these things down here first just to make it a little bit quicker. But you can see we have a multitude of assembling machines, and I tried to, if you recall, I mentioned that with our assembling machines, even with the buffers, with the chests only store the items until it has all the items. And that's where the problem comes in with the assembling machine, because it only stores items in the chest until it has the full order, and then it ships it to an assembler. But if the assembler already has things that it's running, it causes a backup issue where the things just shoot around inside the logistics network until there's space, or things come in out of order, and it's a big issue, and it does cause a lot of lag when things are just bouncing around within the logistics system. So I wanted to deal with that, solve that issue, and what I've done is I've set up multiple assembling machines, which I know sounds maybe like overkill, but it's really not, I don't think. Not with GregTech. I really don't. And not at the point where we're actually pushing automation heavily. I don't think it's overkill at all, because a lot of this stuff requires, like for example, if we want to craft integrated or processor assemblies, it requires integrated processors. It also requires SMD parts. Trying to run all those things through a single assembler is a horrible idea, I think, because they take like 6 parts and lots of recursive crafting. Having all this set up, crafting is fast, it's smooth, there's no backup, it's great, I love it, and I can order processor assemblies at the click of a button. It's not an issue. So you can see right here we have crafting modules and table, which is the crafting table. So for example, if we take a look inside of this right here, you can see, there's the module upgrades, there's the item sync modules, and there is the logistics crafting tables that can be ordered from there. Right here is wool, chests, torches, and hoppers. And the way I've spaced things out is I've tried to fit things into assemblers that match the things that's in there. So this right here is core logistics network stuff, right? This is kind of miscellaneous, sort of vanilla stuff. But I've also tried to look at things and see how many pieces does it take. For example, wool, chests, torches, hoppers don't take a whole lot of ingredients. So if I was to order all 4 of those things at the same time, they could fit within this assembler without backing up, causing issues, things like that. So I tried to balance things out in that way. Down here we have ULV, LV, MV, HV casings and holes, because they just don't take a whole lot of components. And in addition, it's very unlikely that I'm going to order all 4 of these at once. Honestly, there's some of these that I'll probably hardly ever order ever again at this point, because now we're at the point where crafting things with HV is easy. It's so easy. I was using LV machines when we had the MV stage kind of going, because it was cheaper and it was less work. HV is easy. It's no work. So now I'll probably just be making everything as HV and onwards, in all honesty. Really, HV is not expensive. It's gold, it's stainless, it's general. Honestly, making SMD parts is super cheap, so even the circuits are honestly cheaper. It's just better all around. Over here we have miscellaneous machine parts. What that is, this crafts small coils, it crafts vacuum tubes, it crafts resistors. There's a little bit extra space in these. You'll notice back here there's a lot of different types of chassis. There's Mark 2s, Mark 3s, there's a Mark 5, there's Mark 1s. The one that has the Mark 5 is all this stuff. So I try to make chassis that actually fit. Of course, we do use crafting managers for some things, but I find that chassis are really better for these because I only need one logistics plug-in, and really chassis at this point aren't expensive, so I'm not going to nickel and dime my materials at the HV era because now things are getting a whole lot easier for us. Right here we have good and basic circuits. We have SMD parts here, which covers all of our SMD parts, and the way this is handled, you can see that this one is being fed soldering alloy, this one is being fed polyethylene, and there is a fluid provider on the bottom that keeps these provided with those liquids. Over here we have cable crafting where rubber's fed in. We have conveyor modules where rubber's fed in. So I've taught it how to make our LV, MV, and HV conveyor modules, so we don't have to worry about ever crafting these by hand again. So it sends over LV electric motors and tin cables, for example, and with the rubber it turns that into a conveyor module. So those are completely hands-off at this point. Also the same with electric motors. I don't have to craft those by hand ever again. Our cables are completely hands-off now. And then over here we have integrated processors and then processor assemblies. I have these in separate machines and only one recipe per machine because they take a lot of materials. Once again, I don't want these to back up. Now, realistically, I could put torches or hoppers or something in here and probably cut down on, this assembler and have everything kind of just fit in like a puzzle into other things. But once again, I'm not really trying to nickel and dime materials and reduce my machines because there's just not a point at this point. I can mass produce all these materials. I have basically infinite gold at this point. If we take a look, I have 34,000 gold because it's our automatic system, albeit not the fastest thing in the world, is passively supplying us with gold, so it's really not an issue for us. And then over here we have electric motors where molten copper is fed in. You can see fluid suppliers on the sides of these, feeding in that soldering alloy and then that molten copper over here. I think all that is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just using a lot of assemblers that are dedicated to certain crafts. Now down here is where it gets a little bit more interesting, I think. You'll see some crafting managers over here. They can still be accessed. But what these are, this one doesn't have anything at the moment, so just ignore this one. I just went ahead and got it set up. But you can see we have advanced extruders here, because this is another thing that I absolutely hated doing by hand. So we have one that makes gears, we have one that does normal pipes, we have one that does rings, and there will be more added. There's a couple things that I've had to make a few times, and I definitely want to get those automated, but it wasn't as big of a rush as these things. Rings, of course, I use for pumps. Pipes I use for pumps as well, and then the gears I use for the pistons. So it's kind of a necessity for these things. And the way this works is we have a crafting manager over here that tells it the recipe. So right now, really the only recipe I have is like stainless gears, stainless pipes, and rubber rings. So what we've got back here is we have satellite pipes that feed into these chests. And each one has, is named, like this is extruder gear, this is normal pipe extruder, and this is extruder ring. It feeds it into this iron chest, and then it is pulled through a cover into our advanced extruders, which then turn them into the items. The items are all pumped out through here, go into the chest, and we have a result logistics pipe that pulls it then into the network. Kind of like what we have over there, but it's all fed This is just covering the extruders. These 4 extruders, or 5, probably. I'll probably take it all the way to the ceiling, I imagine. But that's just using a satellite system. And I went with this, of course, because we're going to have, maybe not so much running through like the rings, but like pipes, gears, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that we may end up using. So I figured, well, I'm going to go ahead and go with a crafting manager for those. So I don't have to worry about, you know, oh, I don't have enough slots for more normal pipes or more gears or something like that. Not to mention, this is something, we're running a lot of items through here. These aren't going to back up due to the nature of the way that they're set up. They're specified to craft specific things. These are running multiple different materials, and it's the same with like the wire mills and stuff over here. So I like to have a chest buffer that kind of acts as an in-between between stuff coming from the system to be processed and stuff then being processed by the machine. So we're using these chests kind of as buffers for that. Now over here we have, we'll start on the left here. First up we have alloy smelters, and this is creating electrum, brass, bronze, red alloy, and soldering alloy. Down through here I am going to be setting up arc furnaces for steel and annealed copper creation, but I haven't got those set up just yet, so I'm still making that by hand. But our steel consumption is actually a whole lot lower now because we're just basically just using pipes. Or rods, I mean, at this point, is the primary thing. Also, circuit cutting I haven't gotten set up just yet, but we're going to be setting up some stuff that's going to be key to that this episode, that being the blast furnace. So I figured I'd wait for that. So that's still a little bit manual, but it does in mass sort of thing. So back in behind this, I have ran Mark 1 chassis that have the recipes. So, you know, there is our bronze recipe. So that's basically all it is to it. Power runs down to there, and these are running specific recipes. Now over here we have kind of some liquid-based stuff that I just kind of squeezed into here. And first up we have rubber bars because I needed it to cut the rings. And so the way this works is we have a fluid provider down here, or supplier. And that's basically just keeping rubber stocked here. We have an ingot mold. It's making rubber bars just as much as it can. Now right here we have a provider module that's providing then those rubber bars to the system. So instead of storing them up in a cache, I felt like that was really overkill because really the only primary use I think for those rubber bars is going to be cutting for rings, which is 1 rubber bar to 4 rings. Now right here we have, if we take a look right here, you can see an active supplier module, and this is saying keep 48 copper ingots in here. And then it's taking those copper ingots and it's just melting them down into molten copper. And then back behind here, you're going to see fluid providers that are providing then the molten copper from inside the fluid extractor to our machines. And then that way it's feeding over to craft like our electric motors. Because it does require molten copper, and I've been using a lot of electric motors. So that was one thing I was like, I'm getting that automated, that and circuits. I don't want to make them anymore. So I kind of rushed down those. And then I was like, I melted copper for a little bit by hand, or not really by hand, but, you know, putting it through a fluid extractor, but I didn't like doing that. So I tried to push for automating these liquids that I was using a lot. Now, soldering alloy, it's kind of the same thing. You can see that we have an active supplier module saying keep 12 soldering alloy in there. And so what it does is it requests soldering alloy from this advanced alloy smelter, it crafts it, and then it sends it over to this fluid extractor, turning it into our liquid soldering alloy. So at this point I'm kind of moving, instead of just having, you know, before we had one assembler machine, which was absolutely horrible. It was really, really tough to use. It did the job till we got up to HV, but now we're spreading out and we're really automating things instead of just kind of getting by, you know? We were kind of getting by up to HV, and now we're actually pushing automation. And now I can order full machines, and it's just hands-off craft. I don't have to worry about it, and I can order lots of different things. And I'm still working on it. And something I wanted to make mention of, if you recall, if you've been on the channel for very long at all, you know, I talked earlier, a few months back, that I plan on bringing some other series into the mix instead of just Minecraft. Kind of mix it up a little bit, and originally I had planned on doing Baldur's Gate, the new Baldur's Gate, but at least at the moment I'm not confident in it. Because it was one of those games that released as a very early access game. to the point where if you've watched any of the content of it, I've watched a little bit. I try to avoid spoilers, but I did watch a little bit of it when it first, quote unquote, released. And of course, it released as an early access thing. I'm so tired of early access stuff because generally I'm very wary of anything that's early access because it means that it's probably 90% unfinished and it's you basically ruin yourself playing the early access version instead of just waiting for a proper version. And at least right now, the Baldur's Gate's just not something I can I can want to play because like the cutscenes are really awkward, where they don't have any sound and there's just a lot of things that feel like they're really unfinished in it. So decided against that at least for the time being until it reaches a more finished state. But as you know, there is some other games coming out in the future that I do have interest in playing that I mentioned in the past. But so for those of you that have been on the channel for very long, you probably are aware that I've been a long time WoW player on and off, a lot more casually now than in the past. I played my heavy time playing, of course, was in vanilla and BC, and then I've been on and off, and I've went through so many accounts because back in vanilla they didn't have the BattleNet, and if you didn't have an account for 2 years or more, you lost your account. And so I lost my account, and then I came back, made a new account, lost my email, came back, made an account, lost an email. So I've been on and off throughout the expansions. A lot more casual of a player, now than I was in the past. But my guild that I'm in we're starting a Project 30. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically where you level to 30 with the new level squish system. You level to 30, and then you do all the old raids, starting with the vanilla raids, then the BC raids, then the Wrath of the Lich King raids. And then you go to Project 40, where you do, the Cataclysm, Pandaria, and so on. So you have to clear all the raids before you move on to the next set. And as far as gear goes, it's pretty open, just no heirlooms and things like that. And anyways, we're going to be starting Project 30, which is actually really exciting for me because I loved raiding back in the day. And I still casually raid, but not super, super serious. Of course, with Shadowlands coming out, I'm kind of like, I might raid a bit more. Shadowlands is like the first expansion in a long time. I've been hyped before the expansion comes out. Usually I get hyped after the expansion comes out. But I am thinking I might do some Project 30 videos. If you guys are interested in that, do let me know down in the comments. If you're interested at all in WoW or you played WoW, it's kind of a nostalgia factor because we'll be going back to all the older content and doing a bit with that. So if that's something that interests you guys, let me know. I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of fun. So just a heads up there. What we're going to do is have the blast furnace. Let me get... we've got input bus, output bus. There's the fluid, which I might whip up a input hatch for fluid because we do use oxygen some. Yeah, I might do that. But let's go ahead for the blast furnace. I think I want to put the input bus here, the output bus here, and I went ahead and went with HV for this. Oh, that's energy input. Energy input, we're going to have that setting. Then we're going to put the energy input here, I think. And then we're going to put the output bus here. Yeah. And then we'll put a fluid probably right in there, I think. Fluid input for basically just stocking it with oxygen. And then we're going to put in our blast bricks, or our heat-proof machine casings. Sorry. Right in here, I think. And then, let me go get a fluid made up real quick. Okay, and we'll put the fluid in right there. And that way it's there. We will probably be using that, I imagine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop down... I'm short a heat-proof machine casing. because I don't want to spend more than what we have to, we're going to go ahead, pop down here, and steal these copper nickel blocks. Yeah. Let's just take these, because this isn't running anything right this second. I did get a few ores, but I did a little bit of mining, but it's already ran through that. So we'll just go ahead and fill that in. There we go. And then we'll be upgrading the coils that go down there. Alright, so over here where the HV energy input hatch is, we're going to go ahead and just put in, let me do it here, be a little bit easier. We're going to put that turbo diesel generator feeding directly into our energy input hatch. And then what we're going to do, let me get a couple fluid pipes, and let's see. We're going to put a crafting manager in right here. This is going to manage the recipes, and that way it's still accessible, but it's kind of hidden. We can step back here and access it. That's where we're going to put the recipes for our blast furnace. And then we're going to put in our satellite logistics pipe on the input. We're going to put a, let me pop downstairs and get our, actually I'm going to go ahead and get these last two result logistics pipes, and the result's going to go right there. That's going to be fluid. That's going to be fluid. Okay, I was recording, my storage filled up, and I didn't notice it till after I'd set all this up, and I was going to cut for a minute while the Kanthal was running. So what we've done here, let me just pop back here. I was just recording away, and what I've done is, of course, just set this up. This is doing the diesel. This right now isn't stocking anything because we're not using fluids right this second, but I will probably set it up for oxygen or something like that. That's going to go through this blast furnace. These are set up as BF core input, BF core output. We are going to add more blast furnaces. We're going to make a blast furnace field probably down the road, but I'm not going to do it right this second, and that is because I don't want to make coils and have to upgrade coils for 15-20 blast furnaces at a time. I'd rather push coils with just a couple blast furnaces, and then once we get up to a higher coil where we're like, okay, I need more blast furnaces right now, where just stocking the things isn't really fast enough, then we will add additional blast furnaces. But for right now, I think this is going to be good for us. And for some reason, I think my logistics system lost the order, because it's supposed to be sending it over to the vacuum freezer. But over here, what I've got set up is an input bus with VF core input and a result VF core output. And this is stocking diesel that goes into this turbo diesel and feeds into the energy input. Here's the crafting manager for our Kanthal. Well, Kanthal I'm not going to stock because I don't think we really need to stock Kanthal, but I am going to be stocking some of the metals that are running through this because it does take a little bit to run. So basically Kanthal is just it's aluminum, iron, and chrome dust, and like to make it, which of course is really easy, set up a recipe for aluminum dust. Everything else we already had in place, so we can do the Kanthal dust. That goes into the blast furnace, makes that hot Kanthal, and then it takes it into the vacuum freezer and makes Kanthal ingots. And then from there, of course, we can wire mill it down into wires and make our Kanthal coil blocks. Now, right now, I'm just going to make enough Kanthal to get one set of coils, and then we're going to push nichrome, which of course is just nickel and chrome. To make this, it is fairly cheap to do, and it does kind of benefit in that it makes 5 at a time. So nichrome I don't expect to be quite as long as the Kanthal, because the Kanthal is 1 at a time. I don't think that there's a way to make Kanthal in mass like that. No, it's just Kanthal dust is the only method, and 79.2 seconds. And then what I'm probably going to do is make the Kanthal coil blocks, then make the Nichrome coil blocks, put Nichrome in this, and put our Kanthal downstairs in that blast furnace for the time being. And that way it'll run a little bit faster then, which will be good for us. So, but yeah, my recording software did fill up. So for the vacuum freezer, it's pretty straightforward. Just the middle is hollow. So I didn't put anything in there, but everything else is pretty straightforward. And just to show you, if you have these hot ingots, they are going to burn you whenever you're transporting them. So having it all plugged up to the system is ideal, of course. Like I said, right now, for some reason, it's supposed to be, the first couple it's sent over to the vacuum freezer, so it's like, yeah, it's working good. But now it's not really doing that. As you see, it's not automatically sending them over. I think whenever we have it set to auto request, it's going to say, like, the hot Kanthal gets sent over to the system, and then it's like, okay, well, it needs to go over here to get what I'm actually requesting. Of course, it won't be Kanthal in that case. But it just sent something over here and made it. And I'm just making our Kanthal coil blocks by hand for right now, because of the fact that there's really no point in setting up automation for coils, because we're not going to be making, we're going to make, 16 Kanthal coil blocks and then immediately move on to Nichrome. And then I think tungsten steel requires us to go to space, so we're going to do that before too long. Once we get up to the HSSG coil blocks, that's when we get our first energy discounts. But I'll be back in a bit. I'm going to let this run. It's got to run a bunch of Kanthal. Of course, this can be sped up, but we do have to speed up the diesel in order to do that. But we can speed this up, of course, quite a bit here. But it is going to start draining that tank pretty quick. But we can kick out Kanthal that way. But anyways, I'm going to let this run for a bit. I'm going to get this built up on Kanthal and get us to where we can make our Kanthal coil blocks. And then I will be back in just a bit. Oh, actually something worth noting. I didn't even notice it. Kanthal, oh yeah, it shows the tungsten steel with the EV. I hadn't even looked at that. But the Kanthal coil block quest here, to get 8 of them, they give us 8 more. So we can actually craft a bit less, and then 8 to 8 on the Nichrome. Okay, well, we got our Kanthal coil blocks. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let that one finish real quick. We're going to have a bit extra Kanthal, but that's fine. I'm not that worried about it. Let me go ahead and break this off, and we're going to put in these Kanthal coils. So there we go. And our max temperature is now 2700. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is start making the Nichrome. And let's go ahead. Let me just pull out this Kanthal for right now. And we're going to toss in our, I'm going to do one first real quick. So we'll toss that in. It's going to take a little bit to run. I'm going to go ahead and actually just speed this up just a little bit here. But like I said, it's going to be making 5 at a time, so technically it's going to be faster. It's just going to be great. There it went. And then let me go ahead and just toss all that in there and get that running. I think that's going to be enough to make our coils, which it seems like it's auto importing, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. We're going to go ahead and put that into that recipe. And then we're going to set up another recipe and say that if you take and you send, we're going to say 5. We're going to go ahead and do this 5 at a time. If you send over 5 of that, and we'll go ahead and let that cool, but we're going to say that gives us 5 Nichrome ingots. And we'll just put that into there. So, yay. And I'm doing 5 and 5 on the vacuum freezer, and that's just so we don't have leftover hot ingots just floating around in the system. It just goes ahead and converts them into the Nichrome, since it does make them 5 at a time. So, alright, I'll be back in a bit once I get the 8 Nichrome coil blocks once I'm ready to get those, and then we'll kind of finish out for the episode. Okay, I'm just finishing off the last of this. So there's that. I made a little bit extra, but I'm not that worried about it. There is our 8 nichrome coil blocks. And then we're going to get 8 more nichrome coil blocks. What's the reward for this? Okay, nothing that I actually want at the moment. Alright, so now we can full upgrade this into the nichrome version. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and pop down and put this Kanthal in where our ore processing system is. We'll upgrade this again a bit later. For right now, it's just going to get the kind of the leftover coils from up here, but then later on, you know, we'll make it a bit nicer. Now we can finally do what we actually set out to do. Vacuum freezer is just to upgrade the coil blocks, because I wanted to push that because we're going to need it to go into space. But now we get to add the recipe for stainless. So now I can order stainless and the blast furnace can craft it and send it back. So if we were to order ourselves a stack of stainless, we take a look here, it's running, that's great. And then of course once it finishes, it'll send it over into our logistics system. Great, great. Of course it wasn't really an issue. I have excess stainless at the moment, like 400 of it, because I just kept running this stuff through the one downstairs. But now I don't have to even do that. I can let this system run it and keep it stocked, right? Because we're about to start adding, I haven't added anything just yet, but we're about to start adding a bunch of things to keep stocked. Stainless is one of those, electric motors, processor assemblies, things like that. Now that our system knows how to craft them completely, we're going to start keeping things stocked, and we can easily keep things stocked without too much issue at this point, I think. So I will be continuing to work on expanding our HV automation, because I need to now add more alloy smelters. I need to add the arc furnaces for making steel and annealed copper. I need to add a lot more just machines and recipes. I may start expanding these out because we're at a point where crafting more of these machines will be very easy for us. So I may start working on that a little bit. We'll see. And then I'll probably add some more assembling machines and more crafting systems downstairs for the logistics system to craft things. And then we should be pretty good, I think. Next episode, I think we're going to switch gears. Like I said, I'll be doing a lot of this automation just off camera because it's all pretty much the exact same thing. We just have to expand a lot, right? I think that is kind of the nature of Greg Tech. Lots of expanding. And now that we're at HV, we can comfortably and reliably do that without thinking, okay, we're going to be tearing this down. Because I think HV is going to be able to make most of the things. A lot of things LV machines can't make that we need for later tiers, but HV can make most things. There is, of course, some things and new machines and things like that we're going to have to push for EV in due time. But for right now, I think HV is going to be a really solid point for us. So I'll continue expanding this. I'm probably going to go do a bit of mining because I'm starting to get low on certain things, iron especially. Getting very, very low on that. So I'm going to do a little bit of mining. I'm going to do some expanding. And then next episode, when we come back, I think we're going to start looking towards space. I think is going to be our next course of action. Because I'd like to get into space. There's a lot of things that we can get in space that we need to be getting here soon. So we'll probably start pushing into that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button. And go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out. Once again, I do apologize about my footage storage filling up on me. It's frustrating, I know, for you guys, and I know it's frustrating for me because I spend a little bit recording something, and then it's like, oh, you lost all that. So now you got to go back over it and cover it again. So I do apologize about that, but I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I hope to see you guys next time So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe. I'll see you guys then.